Here is an archetypal surfer girl, sun-kissed skin and perfect tones. The same tired, man-made view of the female form shoved down our throats for decades.
I can't take no loss, I don't even know what it costs, I hit the ground then it go off, yeah, hit the ground then it go off, yeah, I can't take no loss, I don't even know what it costs, yeah, I hit the ground then it go off, yeah, hit the ground then it go off, yeah, run it, ooh, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year.
Well, now there's an organization that's helping encourage wetsuits for all body types. And on the line right now to talk about it is the founder of Curvy Surfer Girl, Elizabeth.
Keep on chugging, ran through everything in front of me, might smoke bed in heaven, got a whole agenda, can't aspire to get ahead, so bump that, it's no surrender, got a dollar flipped up, I'm trying to get it in NFT.
Welcome, Elizabeth Sneed, all the way from Hawaii. Thank you so much for coming on Shredding the Gnar and taking the late shift, because normally when I'm speaking to folks all the way across the water in California, it's me taking the late shift, and I've got a morning shift, and I'm feeling fired up and frothed to speak to you this morning, Elizabeth.
I'm so stoked to be here, dude. Thank you so much, Stephen, for having me.
No, it's so rad to be able to connect. You know, the surf, that's the amazing thing about the ocean and the surfing world. And you meet all these interesting people who are like connected to the ocean in such a wild way. So many beautiful, varied human beings. And that's the most amazing thing about this. And being able to chat to do this like 10 years ago, like unheard of, right? And to be able to meet a personality like yourself after having met the beautiful surfer Susie, who I know you're friends with as well. So yeah,
I love her, dude.
Your last 5 days, based on what you've been showing us on your Instagram account, have been crazy. What's been going on there?
I have had, so starting on Friday, I did a campaign for one of the largest corporations in the world, which I am super stoked. I don't know if I can say who it is yet, but you'll find out very soon.
Cool.
And that was a 15-hour day. I got up at 4 a.m. and started hair and makeup, and I finished by 7:30 in the afternoon. I did 8 hours of modeling and 5 hours of surfing. By the end of it, I was so annihilated. I don't even know how I survived it, because the next day was the 2-year Curvy Surfer Girl anniversary party, which was a 6-hour day. And then the following day, I started a documentary series with WebMD about psoriasis. And the last 3 days have been on average about 12-hour days with 8 hours purely in the ocean. So it's been amazing and exhilarating, but also exhausting.
That's absolutely crazy. And I was just saying to you before we started this, like a lesser person would have gone, Steve, you know, I'm a little bit tired after these like crazy shifts, but where do you get your energy from, Elizabeth?
I have no idea. I think it honestly, the ocean imbues me with it, because I still don't know how I'm going after all of that. And like tomorrow, so we have the big like Axis Surf contest here on Oahu at Queens right now. And one of the surfers who's disabled reached out to me, and she was like, hey, can you create some content tomorrow? So I'm like, okay, like, let me get pumped up, because I want to give her my everything, you know, tomorrow morning.
Wow.
So I'm going to try and go do that. And then I actually fly off to New York City on Sunday, which is a 10-hour flight to do a press tour. So I've got 1 day off between now and a 10-hour flight to New York City.
Wow. So
it's fun. Honestly, like I wake up every day and I don't know how this is my life, but like to whatever divine source out there, I am eternally grateful. Like I am actually living in a fairy tale right now. So it's just,
you know, your energy and your froth for life. I mean, you deserve it. And for you know, the thing that resonates with me is like, I meet a lot of people who kind of say, you know, your limitations, and sometimes you just got to say no, and, you know, don't burn out and everything like this. But what you do points to the fact that the harder you work, okay, you love what you do, because that's what makes it easier for you, right? But the harder you work, the more results you get. And sometimes your work is just your passion and something you love, which is, you know, for a lot of people out there, it hasn't quite happened yet. But for those that it has, the more you put in, and the more the universe gives you. And so that's why you're getting what you're getting, because you just don't stop, and your energy is just vivacious. It's infectious is what I want to say.
You're so sweet, Stephen. I'm loving our vibe right now. There's so much synergy here. Like you're clearly a dope person. Surfer Susie was going on about how epic you are. And I'm like, I'm so stoked.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I don't know, like when you really love what you do, I mean, like, this is why it's so easy for me, Stephen. Every single day of my life, I am genuinely just being myself. And for the first time in my life, like, people don't know this about me. So I'll give you an exclusive, Stephen. I just started getting paid after 2 years of doing like backbreaking filming every day, like literally driving Uber for 12 hours a day, then going and doing Curvy Surfer Girl, spending my money that I earned for Uber to pay photographers. I was skipping meals and paying bills late so that I could create content for the movement. And I think like there's this perception that, you know, I had all this money all along, but like I just started getting paid brand deals like within the last 3 months that were enough so that I could stop driving Uber. And here's the cool thing about why I'm saying this. It's because I am being paid to literally be myself, to like live my authentic, joyful life and share that with people and encourage them to do the same thing. And literally, if I can do that, I just want to show other people on whatever level they're capable of that there's more than enough for you out there, like more than enough time, energy, space, money, doors, opportunities, people to support your passion. And you get energy from just existing in the space where you belong. And you get the resources to do it. You find the people that are meant to find you to bring these visions and campaigns and things to life that, you know, are just aligned with your purpose. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And I'll give you an inside scoop as well. I'm in that space right now of, you know, after 40, however many years of trying to discover who I am, and by force majeure through COVID, and there's lots of these beautiful stories out there. I'm finally in a space where I've found my true self, but I'm still in that 2-year period that you were in, where you have to put in the hard work, and the hard work is having to give off the perception that you're doing well to others, and to keep that energy going, and to believe in yourself, and to keep, you know, sacrificing things, and to keep reassuring your family that you're on this right path. And you're an outlier. You're out there, and people are, and you're looking at your Instagram and you're thinking, why aren't people liking my content? Why isn't it growing quick enough? And it's a battle. But, you know, with each stroke, somebody puts out their hand, you know, like yourself and like Susie and like Jonathan Wayne Freeman and like Sean Thompson and all these amazing people I'm getting to speak to, and they just kind of like pull you along, you know, and they get you closer to that point where you can kind of like finally see some light. But I'm still treading water right now, so I totally get what you're saying. The fact that you used to be an Uber driver is so inspirational to a lot of people, and so cool for people.
So many people. I mean, I took people along for that journey. Like, if you followed me, you have seen me having emotional breakdowns on Curvy Surfer Girl. Like, I don't know. I mean, because it's been 2 full years, and like I do days in my life stories pretty regularly and consistently. I mean, I literally had Curvy Surfer Girl community members like Venmoing me money when my tire went flat. You know, like people poured a lot of love on me, and they've known, like, if you've been with me long enough, you've seen the progression to get where we are right now. And it's been no short of a miracle that any of it even transpired. And so, you know, what I have to say to you, and really anybody that's going to listen to this, whether it's about surfing, whether it's about your career, whatever, just keep going. Because when you're aligned with your purpose, like when you are feeling fulfilled by what you're doing, that is the whole universe opening up to you and saying, how bad do you want this? And that was what it was for me every single day. I would wake up and I would be like, today is another test. Do I want to keep being Curvy Surfer Girl and doing this? Or am I going to give up before the whole thing unfurls before me and go back into being a 9-to-5, you know, career government relations professional, which, don't get me wrong, I was very good at that and I enjoyed it, but nowhere near the life-giving energy force that I have now doing what I do. So it's really just the universe saying, like, do you really want this? How much are you willing to, you know, go through? Because eventually, with persistence, things will just start unfolding for you, and you won't even know really how it happened. Like, one day you just wake up and you're living the life that you only imagined was possible. And I'm actual living proof of it right here. So
Amazing.
take it from someone who's been through it.
Well, congratulations on this big campaign that's about to launch. It, as you say, it must be this like pinch me moment for you, like going, wow, it's finally happening, you know, something that you've been striving towards. And another thing I was going to say is, like, when you started out and you were, you know, with Curvy Surfer Girl and you were on that journey, it's not as if you were creating something so niche, as we say in South Africa, that you were in a surf community, and there are a lot of content creators and people out there, you know, so it's not as if you were like, oh, you found this like easy route. You're in amongst a big community of people doing exactly the same thing, and that's also a challenge, right?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but I mean, I was probably the least likely person in the history of all of surfing to contribute anything to surfing. I mean, if you really look at me objectively, I'm a fairly mediocre surfer, beginner intermediate level. I live in Hawaii, surrounded by extraordinarily talented people. I mean, people who are 13, 14 years old, all the way into their 70s, who have names and legacies and extraordinary talent. I mean, people who can live on the nose of a surfboard, you know, on a 3-minute wave. It's amazing. And they have, you know, companies in the surf industry sponsoring them. They never have to pay for content, right? Like, I'm surrounded by this. So for me to have even thought of an idea that really had not been explored within surfing, because surfing is so, I mean, every angle of surfing has really been done one way or another. And for me to have a fairly original idea and to be able to breathe life into it and to do it as my purpose and invite the world and my community here in Hawaii to do it with me is no less than, in my opinion, than divine intervention. I mean, and I did say a prayer to the ocean. Like, a lot of people know this story, but like, I was on my knees crying, having an emotional breakdown, because I lost my job in the pandemic. This was my second round of unemployment in Hawaii. So I had already gone 18 months unemployed as an Uber driver. And now here I was again at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, I don't have anything left to give. I don't know what else to do. Like, I've reached as bottom can get. And I paddled out into the ocean and I said a prayer to the ocean. And I'm like, the ocean is the only thing that matters to me. Like, it is my source. It is my happiness. It is my soul. It's everything. And I told the ocean, I'm like, all I want to do is be with you as much as humanly possible. And if I can be of service to something greater than myself for others, then that would be my purpose in life. And that day was the day the ocean answered me. And I was literally like implanted with the idea of Curvy Surfer Girl. Wow. And I went and did it. I was like, I have no job. I have almost no money, but I'll take what I have and I'm going to start building this because I believe in it. And I think that there are other women out there like me that would benefit from it.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. And thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it. But I wanted to go back to what you were saying about, you know, the community and so many surfers and people in the industry who have had what I call, and no disrespects to any of them, but like an easy route into the world of surfing and content creation. They have an easy route because they come off the back generally, and I'm talking about established like families within the surf community. They come off the back of an established family name, you know, either a father or a grandfather before them. Maybe it's a slightly more privileged way of being brought up. And so they, make no mistakes, their journey is just as beautiful to watch and to see these amazing surfers like step in the footsteps of their forefathers, because it's generally the sons, you know, we think of Shane Dorian's son and guys like that who are beautiful people. But for those outliers and people who, you know, like yourself, you almost, well, I've felt this way, where you come into a community or a genre or you know, like surfing, and you almost feel like people are watching you because they're like, well, who's this? I mean, like, where do you come from? What's your legacy within the surfing industry or the world or content creation or filmmaking or whatever it is? And, you know, it's always such more of a beautiful story when somebody like yourself who comes in and has had, I'm sorry, but you've had to work 4 times, 5 times, 6 times harder than those who've had the route paved for them. And that's just a fact. It really is. And to those people out there that are still struggling and are still trying, you know, like, I take my cap off to them, because they are having to work throughout life harder, much harder than those who have had the way paved for them in whatever way, financial, physical, you know, family lineage or whatever. And so you just got to really like put your thumbs up to people like yourself and to those who've really just like bucked the trend and just gone, you know what, I don't care what you think, I'm doing this.
Yeah, you know what, it's a beautiful compliment to receive. And I know that it was something I really struggled with in the beginning. I mean, it is a very hard community to get into, especially, you know, as a social media content creator, because you are competing. I don't even really like to say competing, because honestly, I don't compete with anybody. Nobody's really doing what I do, and nobody's me, nobody's you. So no one's really competing with anyone. We're just coexisting. Even if we're doing similar things, like I said, sometimes there's this attitude of scarcity within certain communities and spaces. And, you know, the surf industry can really be one of them, where, you know, people think if you show up and you're doing something that, you know, similar people are doing and being successful at, that maybe you're going to take something away from them. But the reality is, it's an ecosystem. And within the ecosystem, there's more than enough money, waves, time, you know, beauty, whatever it is, there's more than enough to go around. And I try to tell this to people who are even trying to break into it now. Like, I know an exceptionally talented surfer in California, and she was telling me, she was like, Elizabeth, I've always wanted to be like a surf content creator, but I just felt like I was never worthy enough, or I didn't have anything important enough to say. And she was like, you know, watching your journey has inspired me to actually go out there and just start doing it. And this girl has been surfing for 20 years of her life, since she was 7 years old, and she's 31. She's my age. So she is really an exceptionally talented surfer. And the perspectives and I'm sure the visuals that she would create are going to be amazing to witness. And it's just giving people, you know, the opportunity to say, yeah, you know what, if someone like Elizabeth, who was born and raised in Northeast Texas, I mean, we're talking on the border of Louisiana and Alabama, like middle of nowhere redneck country, awesome, you know, can be, you know, near an ocean and learn how to surf and do this, then, you know, maybe someone like me who has been surfing, but, you know, doesn't have any name recognition or legacy, you know, any real recognition behind them, maybe I could do it too. And those are the stories that I love to help inspire and encourage, because everyone has a voice, and there is something that you can say that is going to resonate with people. You know, we're all consuming content every day. So you do have a unique perspective about life that someone will be interested in. And then eventually someone will pay you to talk about. And that's just a fact at this stage in our, you know, our history and where we are as people.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a great time to be able to be heard, and there's no better time to have the platforms to be able to do so. And it's just, as you say, believing in yourself and keeping going. So when did you move to Hawaii?
2017 in May. Best day of my life.
Amazing. From Texas?
So I was born and raised in Texas for the first 15 years of my life. Spent 10 years in Arizona. That's where I graduated high school and college. And it was during that time that I visited Hawaii. I got to take my first ever surf lesson. And then I knew, like, that moment, the moment the plane touched the ground, I was like, I'm home, like, for the rest of my life. I don't know how I got removed from Hawaii, you know, in between being born and wherever I came from, but like, I made it back, you know, and I just love it here. It's home, and I plan on spending the rest of my life here.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And whereabouts are you on the North Shore? On Oahu.
I am on the South Shore, so
Okay.
very close to Waikiki. I live like 20 minutes away.
Yeah, you got perfect logging waves there. Beautiful.
Yeah, they're, oh my gosh, they're a dream.
And what's
Like surfing here is just next to none.
amazing. And in terms of what's next for you, what do you, I mean, I know you've got this big campaign that's about to go live and launch, and press releases in New York next week, and busy, but like, what's next on the cards? Have you got any big projects that you can talk about?
Yeah. So Curvy Surfer Girl just became sponsored by Jolynn, which this is a really cool story. So Jolynn actually started with competitive swimming, like in swimming pools.
Yeah.
And they've always worked with like really lean girls and supported those career paths for women. And this year they actually decided to get into surfing, and they reached out to me and they were like, we want Curvy Surfer Girl to be part of the Jolynn family. And they're just such an authentic, enthusiastic group of individuals. They were insanely stoked about what we're doing at Curvy Surfer Girl. And then they loved everything so much that they offered to do a line with me. And so we're creating one of the most size inclusive, high performance swimwear lines that's going to hit the market next spring. And then they listened to a lot of the podcasts and interviews I've done. And I talk about how women's wetsuits stop internationally at a US women's size 14. And that's just years and generations of discrimination against women. There's no reason why they had to stop them at an extra large, because men's wetsuits go up to a 4XL. And so they heard me discussing that, and they said, we want to help make that dream come true too. So we're also developing the first ever size of plus size wetsuits. And I don't know what size we're going up to yet. We're still, determining all the details, but this is really going to be like a historical moment in the making when this launches. And I'm just so thrilled that so many women are going to have access to suits that you can really do activities in. Like, you can go surfing, you can go freediving, you can go kayaking, jet skiing, boating, anything that touches water. If you need support, you're going to be able to wear this collection. And it's also going to be available on your side of the equator too, because Jolynn's in Australia too.
Yeah.
So that's a really exciting thing. And that's what I'm going to New York to discuss, is the launch of this collection and the thought processes behind it. And this is also the first time the company is expanding their sizing in the history of the brand. So just really cool stuff. And I still continue to consult and help other companies with their sizing and their thoughtfulness and design for different body types, and really just help get body diversity part of the surf conversation across the board.
It's beautiful. What a cool story. And so rad that something that, that you've really flagged and put out there is someone's hearing it and actually doing something about it and being inclusive. It's great. And well done. And thanks for doing that and I think on behalf of all the plus size women in the world, you deserve it. And thank you for doing that.
Dude, I'm just, like I said, I'm stoked that I was the one that got chosen to do it. And I'm bringing everyone along with me. Like, if you're on Curvy Surfer Girl, you're coming along for the ride. You're interacting in the designs, the styles, like the rollouts. I choose women from the community to be my models, because I want real curvy surfer girls in the campaigns, in the, the shots. I'm like, this is something for all of us, like the people who really never got any representation at all. And I mean, this goes for like people who aren't pro surfers, which to be honest is most of the world. Like, most people surfing are not professional surfers, and that's all we really ever see represented. And so I was like, let's give some just some soul surfers some love out here, like people who aren't surfing for trophies. Like, we're surfing because our heart and souls love to be in the ocean catching waves. And that's what I try to capture on camera and transmit to the world.
So cool. So very cool. My hairs are standing on end. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I just think it's so great to be so loving and so inclusive, Were you also driven by the fact that we rewind a few years ago and you think of traditional, like surfer girls, and you just, it's that blonde hair, blue eyes, trim figure, and that's what we were fed for years and years and years, and we recently had a screening in Cape Town for the Wavescape surf film and art festival, whom I work with, the film Girls Can't Surf.
Yes, amazing. I can't wait to see that.
Girls Can't Surf is an amazing movie, and it just really shines the spotlight on how wrong women were treated back in the sort of the 70s, 80s, 90s of surfing, the things that went down, the discrimination that happened. But we look back at then, and I look at old adverts of surf competitions, and it's just that same stereotypical surf girl. I guess you spotted that and said, like, hey, let's change this, let's change things up, and let's just.
Well, I'll tell you, Stephen, it wasn't like a very natural thing, to tell you the truth. I mean, when you are fed the same narrative for generations, it just becomes normal. And if you don't fit into that, your goal is to try to become that identity that has been created. And that's where I was trapped for years of my surfing career, was trying to be the archetypal surfer girl that the surf industry had communicated to fit in. And it took me 3 years, and it took me following a lot of body positive creators. But one day I was just like, why do I need to keep trying to be the girl on the posters and the magazines when I can just be myself, and they can let the inseams out a couple inches so that I can be included in this? Like, one day it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, why do we have to keep trying to be something we're not to be part of this bigger culture? Yeah. And I was just like, there's plenty of us out there that are curvy, that are plus size, that surf, that love the ocean. And we're there, but we're, overtly excluded from participating in it, from the decisions on who makes the clothing, to the advertisements, to who, points their cameras at women in the water. And I was just like, enough's enough. Like, we're in 2022. Like, we can be included in this conversation now. And if you won't include us, then I'll just insert myself in the conversation. That's what I did. So
Brilliant.
It worked,
Brilliant. Yeah. It's funny, even within, it's funny how human nature is, within surfing community, even within the male side of the surfing community, like, some people become so focused on how they feel things should look and be curated, and how you dress. Oh, he's not so cool because I don't like the way in which he puts out his content. And it's like, there's this the cool school, and everything's curated in such a way, and it's by and large judgmental, on others, and saying that, like, if you don't fall into line, and you don't like you're not part of that mold, and you're not surfing at these spots or wearing this brand, and that I'm going to exclude you. And that's just unfortunately it's a deeply ingrained archaic way of treating other human beings, right? And
right,
but it's
tribalism.
It's tribalism. That's it.
Yeah. And I mean, I recognize the pretentiousness, and that is something that I often try to eliminate from what I do, because, it does get exhausting, even as, Curvy Surfer Girl, right? With the following and community that we've built, it still can get very exhausting, because I follow surfers from all over the world, and you see a lot of the same beautifully posed, curated, perfect images. And I'm like, I just think that that's another way of excluding people. Like, it's beautiful, but we've seen it so much. Like, every day I log on to Instagram, there is a perfect blonde girl laying on her surfboard in turquoise clear blue water. And it's just like, okay, I've seen it for the last 2 years. And so when I make my content, I try to be silly. I try to fall off my board. I try to dance and just be like, as not pretentious as humanly possible. And and sometimes I even do like my little sexy flexes, where I'm like, hey, look, curves can be sexy. They can be silly. They can be, you don't have to be a professional perfectionist on the surfboard. Like, go out, try things, fail, fall, like look silly, show the cellulite, like, if you look at me surfing half the time, I'm like, hey guys, I'm surfing, like I do not have the cool girl aesthetic going at Curvy Surfer Girl.
Brilliant.
It's very like, just be yourself, be raw, be authentic, don't be afraid to fall. Because I think when you see a lot of that curated content all the time, that also becomes another psychological barrier, because you're sitting there thinking like, well, I don't look like that, or I don't surf in a place like that. Or, in our case, we often can't find swimsuits that even look like that in our sizes. So I've just kind of taken it and flipped it on its head. And I'm like, let's just be wild out here. Let's be, crazy cool surfer girl. That's why I love Surfer Susie. I mean, she's also very, counter that pretentious surf culture vibe.
Exactly.
And she's a hit. Like, I have helped coach her over the last couple of years on social media stuff. And this woman has gone viral time and time again, because she's unique. She's different. She's in her 70s and she's no filter, and we all love it. Like, that's what we want,
She's an amazing woman. Shout out
really
to Surfer Susie, and big love to Surfer Susie, and so much respect to someone who has been surfing for so long, has such an amazing energy for life. And the thing we can take away from Surfer Susie is that you're just never too old to keep enjoying life and sharing the stoke and just being an amazing energy on this planet, right?
Dude, she is such a living legend. Can you just imagine everything that she has witnessed in surfing as it unfolded? I mean, if you really think about it, she started surfing about 30 years after Duke, had reached his maximum height of fame. Yes. And she witnessed like the entire Gidget era. She saw women coming into surfing, the evolution of longboarding to shortboarding to everything it's become today. And that kind of wisdom and knowledge and her stoke that she brings is just something that I hope we can all aspire to. She lives so authentically. She has zero filter and regrets about anything she does or says. And it's such a vibe. It's so inspiring, because it encourages me to just be myself too. Like, if you ever get caught up in the social media universe of just trying to, put content out there that you hope people will like, really what you have to come back to is just being yourself all the time.
Yep.
Some people are going to love you, some people won't, but you're you. And at the end of the day, that's your superpower. And Surfer Susie, I feel like, constantly demonstrates that.
Yeah, she encompasses exactly what you've just described. She just doesn't care what people think. You either like me or you just hit the little unfollow button if you don't. You know what I mean? But,
exactly.
But most of the people do, because, as you say, she's got that authenticity about her, and it's just clearly evident. And the fact that she takes time out to connect with different people and diverse people. And I think for me, it's the biggest lesson I've learned. No matter how unsuccessful or successful you become, to give other humans who have taken it upon themselves to reach out to you, to just extend that same courtesy back. And even if it's a case of like, I can't do it right now, but let's try and do it sometime, or maybe I can help you now, or I can't help you. It's that spirit that you can take through to, from when you're seemingly unsuccessful in everyone's eyes, and when you're mega successful. And there's a saying that I was once told by a dude that powerful people make time. And I once had this guy, I used to be in one of my 38 jobs of, on my existence of being alive. I've had 38 different jobs, right? Okay. And one of those 38 jobs was being a shore skipper for a Dutch schooner. And we used to do long line fishing, tuna fishing off the coast of Africa here. And the boat would come back, and then it was my job to get all the fish out of the boat. And then we'd grade the tuna, and the tuna would go to the markets, whether it's into Japan or to America, depending on what the fish markets were doing. But this man literally started with, he built a rowing boat by himself, and he went from building a rowing boat to having a fleet of boats, to having, one of the biggest fishery along this coastline. And he sat me down one day, and I knocked on his door once, and he had this big desk overlooking the ocean. And he was a real waterman, you know, he's a spear fisherman. He was an amazing man. And he only recently passed away. But the point I'm trying to get at is that his desk was always full of papers. At that time, it was all about paper, right? And he was always busy. But if you knocked on that door, he would say, come in. And he'd stop doing what he was doing, and he'd give you that time. And the one thing I took away from him is, like, I was like, hey, dude, you're always so busy, but like, you always make time. And he said, it's one thing that I was always taught is that, you know, powerful people make time. And that is power within itself, to be able to say, like, you know what, I've got time for you. And it shows humility as well.
You know what I really think it is? So it's funny that you bring up the power dynamic, because my whole degree and career was in politics. I was a government relations professional, and I was working in some of the most powerful places in the world. I was at the United States Capitol with the Senate Armed Services Committee and the House Armed Services Committee, as well as the Senate and House Appropriations. These are the two most powerful centers of governance in the entire world. I mean, we have like the largest military, and these are the people that control the military and the money. And because of the industry I was in, we were with them constantly. And one of the things that I learned from some of these individuals was to just always have a heart of service. And they're all very much like that. And I think that that is one of the ways that you become influential, and you can use whatever power you have to do good things for more people. It's by maintaining that spirit of service and doing what you can for people. And my personal philosophy, because I get this a lot, this interaction of like, oh, you're famous now. I feel weird talking to you. It's like, no, we're people. I'm a surfer. I'm stoked to meet you. I'm stoked that you care about what I'm doing. You know who I am. And I'm the same way. Like, I used to work for Senator John McCain. And I will tell you, working on this man's campaign for a full year, there was not one person. If you wanted a picture with Senator John McCain, he would stop the entire campaign trail to get a picture with you so that you could have that for the rest of your life. And, you know, he's also now passed on. He passed away about a year after I moved here, and he was reelected to the Senate. And I will always have that with me. I'm like, if this man, who's probably one of the most influential senators in the last 100 years of the US, will stop and take a picture with anyone that asks him for one, there's nobody that's, too good to talk to. And I've always had that philosophy, and I carry it with me today, because people are important, and you never know, the person that you meet or talk to today, you could be changing their life in some way. And to give them that human connection and respect that they deserve is something that I will always consider of importance, no matter who I am in the world and how much money or power, whatever I acquire. It's like, we're people, and you matter to me. And I'm grateful that you stopped to introduce yourself, to talk to me. And I try as hard as I can to make time for anyone that wants to meet or talk to me, because I know that when I was on the other side and I wanted to meet my heroes, that those were life-changing moments for me. And I didn't always have opportunities to meet these individuals. So I'm like, I want to be available to people who are interested in anything that I have to say and sharing the connection of life and our experiences, because that's what we're here for,
Yeah. Amazing. What a cool story. And I think we've both drawn that from people that have been influential, and we're able to learn from it, which is great. And I just have to give a shout out to another man who's just like this, and that's Chris Burkhart. I mean, I had a chat with Chris Burkhart a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, the dude he's just short of like 4 million followers on Instagram, but you know what? He gets back to you. He literally writes back to you on Instagram, and you're like, dude, like, how do you do it? And
I admire people like that. I really do. It's like it's the Gary V phenomenon is really what it is.
Yeah.
I love Gary V, and he talks about this all the time. He's like, he's mega successful too, all over social media. And his whole thing is never say no to somebody who wants to talk to you. And I agree. It's like, don't say no to people who want to talk to you. It doesn't matter if they have 5 followers or 5 million. Like, everyone's a person. Everyone is connected somehow. And if someone's interested in you, like give them the opportunity to be interested, you know? I agree. It's like, it's the coolest thing. You get to make new friends too.
Exactly. And well, and you don't want to lose sight of the fact that that's why you started out as, to have a voice and to be this influencer. So why does that have to stop? You know what I mean? It needs to carry on. And if you can't get to your DMs yourself because you've become so successful, well then, as we look at Chris Burkhart Studios, and he's got a team of amazing people that assist making that work. And his response to me when I said to him, Chris, like, you're so successful and you're always on these amazing adventures and you're spending time with your family. You've got what are those animals? Alpaca farm and all sorts of things. Oh. Where do you get the time to respond to me via Instagram? And he's like, dude, this is my business. And this is, I've got to treat it like this, And so interaction is key. And every conversation that I have with people is part and parcel of my business and who I am. And, and that's also true. If you can't get to your DMs, well, then make sure that you have, a infrastructure of cool people that you work closely with who represent your spirit and soul to keep connecting with your fans and people out there,
I totally agree. And like, right now I'm a one-woman show, but pretty soon I'm going to have to go Chris Burkhart style, because it does, I will say, like, from behind the scenes, and you're going to know this soon too, Stephen, because you are headed straight to the moon and stars. I see it in your future.
Thank you very much.
But, we do get to a point where, you get thousands and hundreds of messages. And what people don't realize is, like, every single interaction on a story becomes a DM. So if somebody like hearts your story or responds to it or has any interaction with it, that is suddenly a DM. And if you do not stay on that every single day, you won't be able to get back to everybody. And I always tell people, like, if there is someone that you really want to connect with, that's an influencer on any platform, just be persistent if they don't respond to you right away, or if you need something from them, because you have to realize there's genuinely hundreds and thousands of interactions they're getting per day. So you have to be a prompt and a reminder and send emails and make sure you're in their infrastructure. Because sometimes it just gets, you get so much feedback, right, on a daily basis that you just don't have the capacity to process it unless you have a team of amazing people. And I'm starting to get to that point where, when you have like 4 15-hour shoots in a row, you have to almost have somebody with you reminding you that if you don't drink water, you're going to pass out in 5 hours. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have a migraine, you won't be able to surf, you're going to have cramps. So it does become a bit of a team effort after, so much. But, if you're blessed to get to that point, these are good problems to have.
Amazing. Amazing. I'll be forwarding you my resume.
Yes. Dude, I can just see, like, honestly, the people that you're going to talk to and the conversations you're going to have I'm sure they're going to be so enlightening, because you have this curiosity and you have so much life experience. And that's what people don't realize. Like, when you have a really great, varied life, and then you get to your purpose, you can relate to so many people on so many different levels, even, if they've only surfed their whole life. Like, you've lived so much life that you're probably going to be able to pull stuff out of them they forgot. And that's what makes such a great interviewer and podcaster. And it's something that I'm learning along the way, as guests on these experiences. Like, people who are naturally curious like you and have lived a lot, it's just a great conversation to have on camera,
Thank you very much. That's very, very flattering of you. And you know what I love about you is that you're such a giver, and you know how to encourage people. And it's exactly the type of thing that people like us need. We need that little push, and it could be the tiniest of pushes. And I'm just so very grateful to all the people that I've spoken to, such legends in the surfing world, guys like Brad Gerlach, Tommy Carroll. I love talking to some of the dudes who've actually, they've kind of like not caught up on social media yet. And they've almost like, because they're just so core, authentic people, and they haven't moved with this whole social media thing quick enough. And And again, zero disrespect to them. And it's also almost great that that's the case, because they're living their life. But to be able to speak to these elders and these, the Susies of the world and the older surfers, and to get the younger generation to connect and to hear their stories and to glean, it's like going back to the old elders and sitting and listening to their fireside stories. And no, they weren't perfect. And I'm not trying to say that we need to like follow how they did things, but they can provide us with a lot of like knowledge and insights, and we can choose to use it or not. But generally, I've found that a lot of what they have to say is good for us, because we always hear people say, right, like, I wish I was 31 years old. Like my mom, she's nearly 90 now. And she's been like my rock throughout my life. And she says to me, like, I wish I was your age, knowing what I know now, right? And I guess that's what the point I'm trying to make is, like, speaking to as many people can give us so much,
I personally do what you do online in real life. Like, I'm so blessed to live in Hawaii, because we do have so many, we call it kapuna, like our elder generation, our kapuna. And I sit literally at their knees with bated breath and listen to all the stories that they tell, because they'll even tell you how different the ocean and the waves were, over the decades. And you get to listen to their stoke, and it just transmits into you. And, this almost reminds me too of another concept that I don't get to talk about it too much, but a lot of beginner and intermediate surfers feel intimidated or overwhelmed when they start surfing, because especially in a place like Hawaii and maybe even California, Australia, different parts of the world, you're looking at people who are so extraordinarily gifted at surfing. And it's not that they didn't have to work for it, but they probably have been surfing since they were toddlers or very young. And I always tell people, I'm like, absorb what they do through your eyes, because you are consuming their spirit. They don't ever get to watch themselves surf. None of us do when we go surfing. I'm like, but you have the special privilege of getting to watch that person living their joy and doing what they love. And I'm like, you get to, make that part of you by watching that person surf. And I'm like, what a blessing that is, that we get to witness all these people doing what they love, what they're extraordinary at, what they're gifted at. And I'm like, you get to make that part of you by just seeing it and witnessing it. So that's like another good little piece. If you're a beginner and intermediate surfer that's just struggling to feel, any value to yourself, it's like, you get to literally watch like all these legends around you doing what they love. And then that becomes part of your mind, your memories, and your body, by processing that. And then that ultimately at some point will translate in your surfing. So, that's the kind of stuff that we get to do and know when we hang out with people who are more wise and older and experienced than us. And it's such a privilege,
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Well, shall we wrap it up?
All right, let's do it.
Thank you ever so much, Elizabeth. It's been an absolute treat to be able to get to know you, essentially. And you're an amazing person, amazing surfer. I'm going to leave all the links down below for Elizabeth and what she's doing. Please go and follow, support her. Let's jump onto this amazing journey of the Curvy Surfer Girl. And let's hook up again in 6 months and see where you're at. Thank you so much from all the way from Africa. Big love. Thank you very much.
I am so honored, and aloha from Hawaii.
Thank you. And you have an awesome few months doing all the amazing things that you're doing. You travel safe to New York, and
thank you.
I'll catch up with you soon when you mega famous. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Safe travels. No,
you are
thank you.
Seriously a blast of a person, and please keep doing what you're doing, really and truly. I don't care what it takes to keep going. Just do it, Stephen. You've got a gift. You're special. People love to connect with you. You're going to keep telling amazing stories about surfing, and I'm going to be here listening to them.
Thank you very much. And likewise on your journey. We're there with you. Appreciate you so much.
All right. You have a badass day.
You too.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye, Stephen.